Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 583, The Darkest Soul. Chapter 583, The Darkest Soul. After they left, Samantha changed into a new set of clothes and headed out of the mansion. On her way down the stairs, she encountered the servants she had befriended. "Miss Samantha, are you heading to the Imperial Palace?" one of the maidservants asked with a smile. Samantha was in a hurry, but she still responded politely. "Yes, I have to go there for an errand. I will be back this evening." "I see. Please have a safe trip, Miss Samantha." "You guys too." Samantha excused herself and left. She didn't want her whereabouts to be known, so she didn't ride in a carriage. She looked around, making sure that no one was nearby. After ensuring no one followed her, she released her mana and rushed towards the market area. Unbeknownst to her, a figure emerged behind a tree and chased after her without a sound. Samantha was unaware that she was being followed. Her mind was also occupied with other things. "I have to inform the others before it's too late." She had overheard Alaric's subordinates talking about their plan to capture the members of the heretic cult. When she arrived at the more populated part of the city, Samantha went to a clothing shop to change her attire. She also adjusted her hairstyle so no one would recognize her. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and nodded with a pleased look. "No one should recognize me now." She paid for the clothes and left the shop. She then headed to another location on foot. At this moment, a person wearing a straw hat quietly followed her. He maintained a distance between himself and Samantha to make sure that she wouldn't discover him. When Samantha would look his way, he would hide behind the crowd and blend in with his surroundings. She's more careful this time. Is she meeting the same person? Sikas thought to himself. As he followed her, he realized that she wasn't heading to the flower shop. Samantha was heading to a different location this time. Soon, Samantha stopped in front of a church. It was a church for the believers of the benevolent God. Samantha looked to her left and right before she entered the church. Sikas, who was observing this from several meters away, found it unusual. Why would a member of the heretic cult come to the church? He walked towards a different entrance while keeping his eyes on Samantha. Inside, he saw her enter a confessional. A moment later, a priest entered the opposite side of the confessional. Seeing this, Sikas thought about moving closer to eavesdrop on their conversation. However, just as he was about to take a step, he suddenly sensed an oppressive aura behind him. He stopped in his tracks, eyebrows furrowed. "Young man, are you here to confess your sins?" A kind and aged voice drifted into his ears. Sikas turned around. He couldn't see with his eyes, but with his unique perception, he saw the person who had just spoken. He saw things differently from others. Unlike normal people who could only see the outer appearance of things, Sikas could see the color of one's soul. A bright, white soul represented a kind person, whereas a cloudy, dark soul represented a sinful person. Sikas, who was usually calm, revealed a look of surprise when he saw the person's soul. His soul, it was dark, the kind of darkness that would make one's skin crawl. It was so dark that it almost seemed like the void in space. "I came here to offer my prayers. Please excuse me." Sikas bowed to the old priest and walked away. The old priest stared deeply at him. His lips curved up to form a grin. A black dagger suddenly appeared in his hand. He was about to do something, but he changed his mind. He unsummoned the dagger and shook his head with a chuckle. A peak transcendent came here to confess his sins? How amusing. The investigations on the suspected members of the heretic cult began. Several establishments all over Sorrel were forced to close temporarily for allegedly protecting the members of the heretic cult. The residents were startled by the big joint operation between the Imperial Guards and the Inspection Department. Many were afraid, but most were relieved to hear that someone was finally taking action against the cult. At this moment, Alaric and his subordinates were leading an entrapment operation together with the Imperial Guards and the Inspection Department. They were responsible for handling a bigger case, so they brought more people. Nivis was on her horse, looking at the target location with a baffled expression. "So the target is a 3-ringed beast soul master. Why would an expert at that level join a shady cult?" She shook her head, unable to understand the reason for such a choice. Alaric, who was right beside her, responded with a sigh. When you are desperate, you will try to cling to something that gives you hope. Nivis looked at him and raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She asked. The target is a single father who has an ill daughter. He had been searching all over the empire to find a cure for his daughter, but he couldn't find anything. Even the most renowned doctors and healers couldn't do anything to save his daughter. The heretic cult invited him to join them, promising him to cure his daughter in exchange for his faith. He didn't hesitate and agreed to join the cult. So he agreed to join the cult to save his daughter. Nivis shook her head, her expression unreadable. She looked at him and asked, So did they save his daughter? Alaric shook his head and replied, It wasn't in the report. We might find out once we capture him. Suddenly, they heard a commotion inside the establishment. The sounds of blades clashing could be heard. Hearing this, Alaric jumped off his horse with a frown. We should help out, he said before he rushed towards the building. Seeing this, Nivis clicked her tongue and reluctantly jumped off her horse to follow him. Chapter 584 Deceived by the Heretic Cult. Chapter 584 Deceived by the Heretic Cult. As soon as they entered the building, they saw the Imperial Guards fighting against a lone man. It was a middle-aged man with a shaggy beard. He was holding onto a doll with his left hand and a sword in the other. Using his sword, he fended off the Imperial Guards. Alaric used his appraisal on him and realized that this person was their target. What's going on here? Alaric asked a trembling junior inspector who was hiding behind a cabinet. We were just chatting with him when he suddenly attacked us. We hadn't even mentioned anything about the cult. But he attacked the Imperial Guards. The inspector replied in a shaking voice. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. How dare you touch my daughter? Leave at once if you don't want to die. A furious roar echoed through the building. Alaric turned his head and saw the target pointing his sword at the Imperial Guards with eyes filled with anger. We didn't touch anyone. What are you saying, sir? One of the Imperial Guards reasoned. The middle-aged man seemed to be furious. How dare you lie when I saw everything? My daughter. She was so afraid when you guys came. You could have come here when she was asleep. He lovingly caressed the doll's face when he uttered the last sentence. The Imperial Guards were stunned when they realized what he was talking about. Some felt pity for him, while the others remained indifferent. Sir, you should stop resisting and follow us. That way, no one will be harmed, said a senior officer of the Imperial Guards as he slowly approached the middle-aged man. Stop right there. Don't even think of getting close to me. The middle-aged man was agitated. He threw his sword into the air and controlled it with his psychic abilities. This was his integrated monster trait. He had the ability to control things using his mana. It was a rare ability, so the Imperial Guards were both amazed and threatened. The atmosphere was tense and it looked like the Imperial Guards were about to attack at any moment. Hold on. Alaric stepped forward and motioned to the Imperial Guards not to make any move. Seeing his signal, the Imperial Guards stepped back and withdrew their weapons. The middle-aged man looked at Alaric with a frown. Who are you? Alaric stopped a few meters from the man and smiled at him. We didn't come here to hurt your daughter, sir. I apologize if we may have startled your daughter. He lightly lowered his head. The Imperial Guards were stunned when they saw this. They had never seen a member of the Imperial family bowing to a commoner before. Not even the aristocrats would do something like this, for they find it demeaning to their status. Your Highness. The Imperial Guards wanted to say something, but Alaric waved his hand, motioning to them not to intervene. Alaric felt pity for this man. He had been deceived by the cult. They used his vulnerability to get him to join them. You must really love your daughter. Alaric looked at the doll in the man's hand. He could sense traces of an evil aura from it. It was the filthiest aura he had ever felt. It was even worse than Scylla's necromancy powers. The middle-aged man's gaze softened when he heard this. Of course, she is my most beloved little treasure. I will do anything for her. Alaric sighed at his words. Sir, please follow us. I will ensure your safety and your daughter's safety. I promise you, he persuaded. The middle-aged man hesitated. He looked at the doll with affection before turning his gaze back to Alaric. Did you come here because I'm part of the cult? He asked, his face turning cold. Alaric nodded. You might have done it to save your daughter, but you should know that the cult is an enemy of Veronica. Joining them is an act of treason. The middle-aged man smiled at him. He deactivated his psychic powers. I knew this day would come when I joined the cult, but I don't regret anything. He stroked the doll's head when he said this. Alaric's face became gloomier when he heard this. He stared deeply at the man and muttered, What if you realize they were deceiving you all this time? The middle-aged man frowned. What are you saying? Alaric lifted his hand and summoned his power of destruction to destroy the evil aura emanating from the doll. Ihey! Everyone heard an eerie sound, but it soon vanished. The middle-aged man was shocked and something within him seemed to have snapped. He lowered his head and was horrified to find out that the one in his hand wasn't his daughter, but a worn-out fabric doll. He subconsciously let go of the doll. This how? My daughter. His voice was filled with utter disbelief. You have been deceived by the cult. Alaric's voice drifted into his ears like a hammer. They never wanted to help you cure your daughter. They just wanted to use you. He added. The middle-aged man couldn't believe it. The fragments of memories in his mind didn't add up and it made him utterly confused. No, it can't be. My daughter. He couldn't accept the truth. Tears fell from his eyes when he realized that it was all a lie. His heart felt like it was being torn into pieces. He grabbed his chest as he cried with deep sorrow and pain. Everyone watched this scene and empathized with him. The middle-aged man grabbed the doll and wailed. His screams and cries echoed across the building, stabbing the hearts of the listeners. Alaric let out a sigh. He made a hand gesture, motioning to the group to leave the building. Everyone quietly left so they wouldn't disturb the grieving father. After a long time, the man's screams turned into sobs. He lifted his head and looked at Alaric with a mixture of emotion. Thank you. Alaric didn't say anything and just nodded his head. Chapter 585 The Heretic Cult's Retaliation. Chapter 585 The Heretic Cult's Retaliation. Alaric tied the man's hands with mithril handcuffs. This is for my subordinates' safety. I hope you understand. They wouldn't feel at ease if I let you walk freely after all that ruckus you made. The middle-aged man nodded. I understand. He still seemed out of it. Your identity is a bit special, so you will be taken to an underground prison. Just stay there and be good. I will try to persuade the officials to minimize your sentence. Alaric felt that this man deserved a second chance. He was only forced by his circumstances. Thank you. The middle-aged man hung his head low. Alaric summoned the Imperial Guards and instructed them to escort the target to the underground prison. The operation concluded just like that. You could have released him, Nivis remarked as she approached him. Alaric shook his head. It would be unfair to the innocent people who fell victim to the heretic cult. He may be a victim too, but he still joined the cult. Nivis shrugged at his response. Let's go. We still have 2 more targets before the day ends. Alaric nodded to her and stepped out of the building. Nivis clicked her tongue. Upon stepping out of the building, Alaric saw Sikas rushing towards him on a horse. When he was only a few meters from Alaric, Sikas pulled the reins to make his horse stop. He then jumped off and bowed to Alaric. Lord Venerable, there is something that you must hear. Hearing this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and nodded. Go on. I'm listening. There was no one around except Nivis, as the others were busy cleaning up the operation's aftermath. Sikas leaned forward and reported everything that happened at the church. Alaric's face became grim when he heard what had happened. He looked at Sikas and muttered with a frown. The old priest you encountered at the church must be a high-ranking member of the heretic cult. Perhaps he might even be the cult leader. The man's aura, it was beyond mine. He is definitely a venerable, a powerful one. Sikas spoke with great certainty. Alaric agreed with this. Sikas usually never showed much of a reaction, but Alaric could sense the fear in his expression. Just what kind of person did he encounter to make him look like this? Alaric took a deep breath to calm his emotions. Should I continue tailing that woman? Sikas asked. Alaric shook his head. No, they must have realized your identity. Following her alone would be dangerous. He couldn't allow Sikas to take the risk. He might be powerful, but he wasn't invincible. You will join us in the next operations, Alaric added. I obey. Sikas acknowledged the order without complaint. The normal members were taken to a government prison, while the high-ranking members were taken to a separate, more secure facility. The actions done by the Imperial Guards and the Inspection Department brought a wave of relief to the citizens of Veronica. Some residents even actively supported the operation by giving information about suspicious individuals. With the people's support, the operation proceeded smoothly. Everyone thought that the heretic cult would be eradicated, but something happened 2 weeks after the operation began. Almunson, the second-largest city of Veronica, was taken over by the heretic cult. The news shocked everyone in the capital. No one expected something like this to happen. Almunson wasn't a weak city by any means. There were several big aristocratic houses in the city with powerful armies. It was also under the protection of the Bloody Iris, the Duchess of House Park. However, even with so many powerful aristocratic houses, Almunson didn't even last for 2 days after being attacked by the heretic cult. There were still no official reports on the number of casualties, but it was said that the Duchess, Park Sagwa, was captured and imprisoned by the members of the heretic cult. The news of her capture sent the people into panic. Many neighboring cities closed their gates in fear of the cult's attack. The cult's retaliation came so quickly, At this moment, Alaric was heading to the imperial palace. He received an invitation from the Empress. Nothing was mentioned on the invitation letter, but he could already guess what the Empress wanted to discuss with him. Inside the carriage, Alaric was immersed in his thoughts. "Your Highness, why do you look so gloomy?" A pleasant voice drifted into his ears. Turning his head, he looked at Samantha. He didn't return to the mansion for a long time, and he could sense that she was starting to get impatient. "I still haven't fulfilled my promise to you." Her voice was filled with hidden meanings. Alaric couldn't be bothered to play along with her anymore. She was already of no use to him. By following her whereabouts, they found a few secret hideouts of the heretic cult, and they even captured several high-ranking members. With an indifferent look, he replied, "We have no time for that. Aren't you aware of what is happening to Veronica right now?" Samantha was stunned by his cold response. He would usually smile at him and even say sweet words, but he was unusually harsh this time. It was as if he had become a completely different person. Samantha lowered her head and apologized. "I'm sorry for speaking carelessly, Your Highness." She clenched her teeth, controlling her anger and annoyance. How is he still fine? Normally, the poison would work after a week upon consumption, but 2 weeks had already passed by. However, Alaric showed no signs of change. She still couldn't detect a trace of poison energy from him. Suddenly, a thought occurred to her. Could it be? He found out about the poison? Her pupils contracted. "We are here, Lord Venerable. This is as far as I can take you." The coachman's voice interrupted her thoughts. Alaric pulled his eyes from her and muttered, "Follow me." Samantha felt that something was amiss. She didn't want to follow him, but she felt that something bad would happen if she didn't listen. Gritting her teeth, she stepped out of the carriage and trailed behind Alaric, watching his back with an uneasy expression. Did they discover my identity? Shit. I should have listened to the high priest. She looked around, searching for a possible escape route in case something happened. "Miss Samantha! Samantha!" Alaric's voice echoed, startling her. "Yes, I'm here, Your Highness." She nervously looked at him. Alaric jumped onto the horse provided by the Imperial Guards and beckoned to her with a smile. "Come up here and sit with me." Seeing his charming smile, Samantha eased her fear. She forced a smile and nodded. "Yes, Your Highness." Alaric pulled her up onto the horse and made her sit in front of him. "Hold tight," he whispered into her ear. Alaric held onto her hips with his left and onto the reins on the other. He then lightly squeezed his legs, urging the horse to move. "Did I make you nervous?" Alaric suddenly asked. Samantha didn't know how to respond. "Forgive me. The recent news must have made me stressed out. I didn't expect the cult to retaliate this strongly." Alaric sighed. His words made Samantha relax. She thought that her identity had been discovered, but it seemed like he was still in the dark. "That scared me. I thought they already knew everything about me." She placed her hand on her chest and felt her wildly beating heart. "You don't have to apologize, Your Highness. It was inconsiderate of me to only think of having fun when the entire country is in chaos." She feigned sadness and guilt. Alaric chatted with her along the way to make her relax her guard. "Can you still keep that mask later? I wonder." He smirked as he thought of this. Soon, they arrived in front of the palace. Alaric jumped off the horse and helped Samantha climb down. An Imperial Guard brought them directly to the throne room where a group of ministers and officials were waiting for them. Alaric looked at the throne, but the Empress was still not there. The Grand Commander was also not around. A few officials greeted Alaric, but the others just stayed in their positions without even bothering to look at him. Alaric was already used to this, so it didn't bother him much. "The Supreme Ruler of Veronica has arrived," announced the messenger in a booming voice. Everyone subconsciously straightened their postures upon hearing this. They turned their heads to the huge double doors and saw the Empress in her dragon and phoenix robe, walking along the red carpet with great elegance and poise. Her face was calm and cold, her aura intimidating. Behind her was the Grand Commander, who eyed the gathered officials with a stern look. The Empress's gaze momentarily stopped on Alaric, but no one seemed to have noticed this. Before sitting on her throne, she scanned the crowd with her icy gaze. "I called you all here to..." Chapter 586 Cleaning Out the Imperial Palace. Chapter 586 Cleaning Out the Imperial Palace. "I called you all here to discuss the matter about Ulmunson. The heretic cult has retaliated, and it's not just Ulmunson that is affected. Other cities also reported attacks from unidentified forces." The Empress added, her face looking grim. "We cannot sit idly by while our people are suffering. We must take action now." Anger was palpable in her voice as she spoke those words. "I have summoned the armies of Veronica to attack the warriors of the heretic cult. Tomorrow, we will launch an attack on Ulmunson and take it back from their hands. Gather your troops and bring them to the rally location," the Empress commanded. "We obey your majesty." The generals and the officials answered in unison, their voices echoing in the throne room. The empress flicked her sleeves and sat on her throne. "Before that, we must do a massive cleanup on the palace." Upon hearing this, everyone raised their eyebrows with baffled gazes. "Bring him in." The empress made a hand gesture to the Grand Commander. The Grand Commander, Ludwig, nodded and shouted to his subordinates, "Bring the traitor inside." The huge double doors sprang open and 2 imperial guards came in, holding a tied-up man with stern faces. When the generals and officials saw this person, they gasped in shock. It was the governor of Almonson, Lei Hansu. He was a middle-aged man with a well-built physique. His skin was light brown, and his thick unibrow made him look quite fierce. Lei Hansu was a former commander of the Veronican army, but he was given an official position for his meritorious service. He had been serving as the governor of Almonson for several decades and was known for his loyalty to the empress. However, the same man was now brought to the throne room as a traitor, so it filled everyone with disbelief. "State his crimes," the empress commanded in a cold voice. The Grand Commander nodded and opened his mouth as he faced the gathered crowd. "Lei Hansu has been secretly colluding with the heretic cult. He covered up the recent cases of disappearances and kidnappings in Almonson. He funded the construction of a few of the heretic cult's hideouts in Almonson. And just recently, he helped the heretic cult attack House Park, which led to the capture of the Duchess, Park Sagwa. Every single one of his crimes could be charged with treason. The moment it was exposed, everyone was furious. So it was you. How dare you collude with those lunatics?" One of the generals present couldn't contain his anger and rushed towards Lei Hansu. A group of imperial guards immediately stepped forward to stop him. But the general was a transcendent knight, so it took them great effort to calm him down. "General Rin Shu, I understand your anger, but you must control yourself in Her Majesty's presence." The Grand Commander reprimanded the general. The general realized his mistake and quickly apologized to the Empress. "I apologize for my unsightly behavior, Your Majesty. I accept any kind of punishment." Iskila stared deeply at the general and waved her hand indifferently. "This must not happen again, Rin Shu." Her voice was calm, but the general could tell that the Empress was displeased. With a face full of sweat, he lowered his head. "I understand. I will be more careful, Your Majesty." The general glared at Lei Hansu before he returned to his spot. Meanwhile, Samantha, who was standing behind Alaric, was shaking when she saw Lei Hansu. She had a few dealings with this man, so they knew each other. Shit. She was afraid that the guy would expose her. If that happened, she knew that she would be done for. At this moment, the Empress's voice echoed in the throne room. "Lei Hansu, among those who are gathered here, tell me the names of those who are part of the heretic cult." Everyone was stunned. Since the Empress said this, it meant that there were members of the heretic cult in their midst. The generals and the officials glanced at each other with wary gazes. They wondered which of the people gathered were the traitors. Lei Hansu lifted his head, revealing his beaten-up face covered in blood. There was fear in his eyes. I'll talk," he responded in a trembling voice. He took a deep breath and scanned the faces of the crowd. He then pointed at an old minister and shouted, "That guy! He is a member of the cult. I have a few dealings with him, so I wouldn't forget his face." The face of the accused minister darkened. He could sense everyone's judging looks, and it made him feel uncomfortable. However, he forced himself to calm down and denied the accusations. "Lies. He is lying. He is trying to sow discord between us all," the old minister reasoned. Lei Hansu sneered at him. "Stop acting innocent, old fart. I know you are a part of the cult." He looked at the Empress and said, "Your Majesty, I'm telling the truth. You can inspect his house. You will definitely find some clues there." Hearing this, the old minister was agitated. "You scoundrel! How dare you lie to Her Majesty?" With a face full of tears, the old minister knelt before the Empress and cried, "Why, Your Majesty, I have been falsely accused. I'm innocent. I have been following Your Majesty for 5 decades. I will never betray you." Some people were moved by his words. He was indeed among the most loyal people to the Empress. However, there were also others who remained skeptical. Even the governor, who was known for his loyalty to the Empress, was part of the cult, so it wouldn't be surprising if the old man was the same. Iskila was unmoved by his words. She turned her gaze to the Grand Commander. "Send your troops to search his house at once. I obey Your Majesty's commands." The Grand Commander acknowledged her instructions with a bow. He then called his subordinates and passed the Empress's orders. Seeing this, the old minister became even more anxious. "Your Majesty, don't you have any trust in your loyal servant? I have been toiling for you all my life. I never thought of betraying you. Please believe me." The Empress stared at him and said, "If your loyalty is true, then I will apologize if nothing is found in your home. However, if it is proven that you are a member of the cult, you will be hanged tomorrow in front of the citizens of Veronica." The old minister trembled. "Why, your majesty? That's enough. Bring him away and lock him up temporarily." The Empress waved her hand with a snort. She then moved her eyes back to Lei Hansu and commanded him to continue. "Go on." "Why, yes." Lei Hansu pointed out a few more people. There was one of them who tried to escape after being named by Lei Hansu, but he was quickly subdued by the Imperial Guards. There was even someone who tried to attack the Empress, but was quickly killed by the Grand Commander. 13 names have been called, and all of them were famous officials and generals. "Is that all?" The Empress stared deeply at Lei Hansu. Lei Hansu was about to nod when he saw a familiar face in the crowd. When Samantha locked eyes with him, she knew that she was screwed. "Shit. That fucking bastard. I'm fucking screwed," she cursed in her mind. Samantha tried to hide behind Alaric, but Lei Hansu had already noticed her. "Her. That woman. She is also part of the cult." Alaric turned around and looked at Samantha with feigned surprise. "Samantha, you are from the heretic cult?" Samantha shook her head and denied it immediately. "No. He is lying. I'm innocent, Your Highness." Her eyes darted around as she subconsciously stepped backwards. An Imperial guard grabbed her shoulder, stopping her from moving. "Please don't move if you don't want to get hurt." The Imperial guard muttered with a fierce glint in his eyes. Samantha looked at Alaric and quickly rushed to his side. She grabbed his hands and vehemently denied the accusations. "Your Highness, I'm telling the truth." Alaric sighed. "You really are a good actress, Samantha." His lips suddenly curved upwards, forming a smile. He looked at her with an amused expression. "Did you really think I didn't know about it?" He chuckled with a teasing look. "The moment you approached me, I already knew that something was off about you." Samantha widened her eyes, feeling a mixture of shock and anger. "You? Then why did you do those things?" "Oh, you mean that?" He shrugged. "I just wanted to know how far you will go to fulfill your objectives. Thank you for those wonderful memories." He smirked disdainfully. Hearing this, Samantha's eyes turned red and her face contorted with fury. "You fucking bastard. I will kill you." She unleashed her mana and activated her hypnotize trait while charging towards Alaric. Alaric let out a sigh while shaking his head. "How unsightly." He raised his hand and did a snapping gesture. With a snap of his fingers, he summoned the power of destruction. Bang! Chapter 587 Crimson Phoenix Knight's Order. Chapter 587 Crimson Phoenix Knight's Order. Bang! Samantha's head exploded like a smashed watermelon. Everyone was shocked. When Samantha unleashed her mana, they sensed she was a three-ringed beast soul master. In Veronica, she could already be considered one of the peak experts. However, someone at that level actually died with just a snap of a finger. It was an unbelievable sight that made everyone dumbfounded. The headless corpse and the bloodied floor told them that everything was real. It took everyone some time to recover from their shock. "Clean it up," the Grand Commander shouted to his men. He couldn't help but give Alaric another look. He was also a mythical knight, but he couldn't kill a three-ringed beast soul master in such a manner. The Empress, Esquila Veronica, stared meaningfully at Alaric. "That power, what kind of elemental is that?" She didn't recognize what power Alaric had unleashed. She only sensed a burst of mana when Alaric snapped his fingers. Is that a new, undiscovered element? She was curious, but this was not the right time to ask questions. "I apologize for my conduct, Your Majesty. I didn't expect her to attack me, so I acted out of instinct." Alaric's nonchalant voice echoed in the throne room. Esquila snorted. She knew that Alaric had deliberately provoked Samantha, so he would have the perfect reason to kill her. It was a calculated move, but she didn't bother to expose him. "You were only protecting yourself, so you don't have to apologize." She already planned to kill Samantha anyway, so it didn't matter. At this moment, everyone looked at Alaric with added caution. This guy seemed so young and unassuming, but his strength was already beyond their comprehension. They told themselves not to provoke him so they wouldn't suffer the same fate as Samantha. Esquila stood up from her throne. "I expect all your troops will be ready tomorrow. We will set off before sunrise." After saying those words, she walked down the throne. "We will mobilize our troops at once, Your Majesty." The generals and officials answered in unison. Their voices rang loudly in the throne room. Esquila walked along the red carpet with an unusually serene expression. When she passed by Alaric, she sent him a look and muttered, "I expect your presence tomorrow." She didn't wait for his response and walked away with the Grand Commander. After she left, the generals and officials scrambled out of the throne room. They still had many things to prepare for the expedition tomorrow. They were pressed for time and they might not be able to get some rest tonight. Looking at the scrambling officials, Alaric chuckled with amusement. He calmly left the throne with his hands behind his back. The next day, before the sun had even risen, a large number of soldiers had already gathered at the rally location outside the capital. Various martial and aristocratic houses led their troops to join the expedition commanded by the Empress herself. Everyone felt that it was an opportunity to rise, so they didn't want to miss it. At this moment, a loud roar echoed across the airspace. Everyone subconsciously lifted their heads in shock. Roar! A draconic lion swooped down and landed in the middle of their formation. Some thought that it was hostile, so they prepared to attack. But then they noticed that it was carrying a group of people. Alaric smiled faintly as he jumped off Zephyr's back. His subordinates followed suit, jumping off one by one. Their dramatic entrance shocked everyone, while there were others who found it annoying. "Your Highness!" A general came running to greet him with a respectful smile. He was one of the high-ranking officials who were summoned to the throne room yesterday. He witnessed Alaric's might, and it was deeply engraved in his mind. A few more officials came to greet him. Alaric politely responded to the group. Making friends with these people would be beneficial for his household, so he took his time to chat with them. "I don't see Her Majesty. Will she lead us in this expedition?" Alaric casually asked. "I heard that Her Majesty's personal guards, the Crimson Phoenix Knights Order, were mobilized last night, so there is a high chance that Her Majesty will be here," a general quickly responded. When they heard him mention this, everyone was stunned. The Crimson Phoenix Knights Order was a group composed of female warriors. There were only 50 of them, but they were all transcendent knights. Furthermore, their commander and deputy commander were mythical knights. They rarely appeared in public, and they were only sent out during important missions. Alaric rubbed his chin with a look of interest. He had also heard of rumors about this secretive Knights Order, but what he heard were just exaggerated rumors. "I heard that all members of the Crimson Phoenix Knights Orders are great beauties, and the most beautiful of them is their commander, Bai Seolwa," remarked a younger official with a cheeky laugh. "Right? I heard that she is even more beautiful than Her Majesty. I wonder if that's true." Another official piped in with a dreamy look. "What? Is there really someone more beautiful than Her Majesty?" Someone couldn't believe it. Alaric quietly listened on the sidelines, looking intrigued by the topic. Iskila was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her beauty was on par with Ivana's. But the Empress had more charm and was also more elegant. Now, they were saying that there was someone better than her. Alaric found it hard to believe. "Her Majesty, the ultimate ruler of Veronica, is here," the loud voice of a messenger suddenly echoed. Everyone turned their heads in the direction of the voice. An entourage of female warriors dressed in crimson armor came into their view. They all rode a winged scarlet fox, a breed of fierce beast that was at the disaster grade at birth. Leading the entourage was a white-haired woman with pale white skin. She had refined facial features, like delicate porcelain, carefully molded into perfection. Unlike common Veronicans who had brown irises, hers were red. Her unique eyes made her look incredibly stunning. "So beautiful," one official mumbled with an absent-minded gaze. Alaric used his appraisal on the woman. "By Seolwa, Mythical Knight, EXP. 5722/10,000. Potential, SSS. Traits, Immortal Beauty L. Shield Mastery, SSS. Glaive Mastery, SSS. Close Combat, SSS. Horseback Riding, SS. Intuition, SS. Innate Divine Strength, S. Swordsmanship, S. Strength, 1221. Stamina, 1207. Agility, 1204. Vitality, 1288. Endurance, 1344. Mana, 1188. Oh, Alaric raised an eyebrow upon seeing her attributes and traits. As if sensing his gaze, Bai Seolwa glanced in his direction. They locked gazes for a moment, but she quickly looked away. Alaric moved his gaze to the woman next to Bai Seolwa. Using his appraisal, he discovered that she was Kangjian Jianhua, the deputy commander of the Crimson Phoenix Knights Order. She wasn't a pure Veronican, which was quite obvious from her looks. She had blonde hair and gray irises. She was also way taller than the average Veronican woman. Kangjian Jianhua was also a great beauty, but she looked ordinary with Bai Seolwa right next to her. Her attributes and traits are at a high level too. These women are insanely strong. Alaric was surprised. He then inspected the members of the Crimson Phoenix Knights Order. He found out that they were all powerful transcendent knights. In the middle of this entourage of beauties was a carriage with dragon and phoenix carvings. It was the imperial carriage of the Empress. Everyone watched with bated breath as the carriage door sprang open. Esquila Veronica, dressed in her crimson battle armor, stepped out of the vehicle. She looked heroic, like the female warrior in myths. Greetings to the ultimate ruler of Veronica. The soldiers greeted her with a salute, their voices reverberating across the landscape. Esquila scanned the troops, her eyes stopped on Alaric for a split second. Only the two of them noticed this. The Empress, ever so graceful, walked as she observed the soldiers with a sharp gaze. Today, we will march to Almunson and take it back from the hands of the heretic cult. She paused her steps, and with her eyes narrowed, she spoke. This trip will be fraught with dangers, so prepare yourselves. Warriors of Veronica, set off at once. We will reclaim the land taken from us. Her awe-inspiring yet angelic voice drifted into everyone's ears. Yes, your majesty. The soldiers answered with vigor. Alaric could feel his blood pumping vigorously. He was infected by the atmosphere she created. So this is the effect of Esquila Veronica's impassioned speech. Let's go, he said to his subordinates as he jumped onto Zephyr's back. Yes, Lord Venerable. The Veronican troops led by the Empress began their march. An army with over 300,000 soldiers marched through the grassland, meeting the fresh rays of sunlight. The cold breeze of the morning air swept through them. It was time to destroy the heretic cult. Chapter 588 Sufferings of the Prisoners. Chapter 588 Sufferings of the Prisoners. In a dungeon somewhere in Almunson. How many days has it been since they took me here? Inside a dark prison, Park Sagwa leaned against the cold earthen wall. The light from the torches in the corridor barely illuminated the dark hellhole she was in. She wasn't alone in this prison. Other important officials and generals of Almunson were also imprisoned here, but they were all in terrible condition. Food is ready. A mocking voice echoed through the corridor. The clanking sounds of the chains could be heard as the prisoners scrambled over to the iron bars. The heretic cult didn't give them any food for days, so they were all starving. 3 people came into their view. 2 were pushing a cart that carried a large pot of soup, while the other was holding a ladle. The guy holding the ladle watched the prisoners with amusement. "Wait in line, you damn bastards," he shouted while hitting the iron bars with the ladle. He then grabbed a bowl and half-filled it with the soup. "Here's your food. Who's eating first?" He laughed as he put the bowl on the food port. The prisoners were disgusted. They were hungry, but they would never eat something that had been spat on by someone. "You disgusting vermin! How dare you humiliate the officials of Veronica like this? We may be your prisoners, but you should provide us with clean water and food," shouted an old official of Almunson. The other prisoners also voiced out their anger, but this didn't prove to be effective. "So you don't want to eat, huh? All right, that's your choice." The man holding the ladle shrugged with an unconcerned smile. "You're lucky that I'm a kind man. I will place your bowls here, so just grab them if you feel like eating." He filled several more bowls with the soup and added his spit to each bowl. The prisoners saw this, making them even more agitated. "Damn bastard! If I ever get out of this shithole, I will find you first and skin you alive," roared a transcendent knight from House Park, his eyes brimming with killing intent. The man holding the ladle put on a scared look as he responded in a teasing voice. "So scary. Ha ha ha. You want to escape from here? In your dreams. Dumbass. Ha ha ha. This lord is called Futayson. If you want revenge, come and find me. Ha ha ha." Futayson and the other mocked the prisoners. Park Sagwa glared at the trio, her aura suddenly gushed out, but it quickly died down. Futayson was momentarily scared, but he chuckled when he remembered that Park Sagwa was tied in mithril chains. Who would have thought that the renowned Bloody Iris would have such a day? Park Sagwa, you were an unattainable figure to us, but look at you now, suffering in this gloomy dungeon with all these smelly officials. Ha ha ha. Park Sagwa stared deeply at them and muttered in a cold voice. "You'd better watch yourselves. I will come for you even if it kills me." Futayson nervously chuckled. "Let's go," he snorted as he left with his subordinates. After they left, the prisoners hurled insults at them. "Those fucking bastards! I will kill them! Fucking cult members! I will crush them if I escape this place." Park Sagwa grabbed onto the wound on her abdomen, grimacing. "If it weren't for that guy, this wouldn't have happened. I thought only the cult leader would be a threat to us, but there is another monster in the heretic cult other than him. Your Grace, are you all right?" A survivor from House Park rushed to her side with a look of concern. Park Sagwa raised her hand. "I'm fine. This is no big deal. But your wounds." Inside the main mansion of House Park, a man who looked to be in his late 40s stood on the balcony, overlooking the picturesque landscape with an indifferent expression. "At long last, we finally took the first step of our grand plan," he muttered. "Lord Rin, I have taken the demonic sword." A warrior came, holding a blood-red sword in his hands with great caution. Rin Aspen turned around and looked at the sword. He was fascinated by the sword's evil aura. Good work. He grabbed the sword and unsheathed it. Looking at its blood-red blade, he marveled. How gorgeous! I have been searching for you all this time. He smiled. Suddenly, he swung the sword, cutting off the head of the warrior who came to deliver it. Whoosh! The warrior didn't even know how he died. He only saw his own headless corpse before his vision darkened. In the next moment, something horrifying happened. The blood from the warrior's corpse was sucked in by the blood-red sword. So this is the power of the demonic sword. How beautiful! Rin Aspen cackled as he watched the gruesome scene with excitement. Soon, the warrior's body dried up and became a mummified corpse. Rin Aspen could feel the sword trembling, as if it were shaking in excitement after finally devouring blood from years of starvation. Are you exhilarated? He mumbled. Follow me. I will allow you to devour the blood of our enemies. The sword produced a keening sound as if it were responding to his request. Is that a sign of agreement? Rin Aspen narrowed his eyes with a smirk on his face. A few days later, the army led by the Empress finally arrived at the borders of Almunson. The soldiers were exhausted because they had been marching without rest, but no one complained. They knew that if they were to delay, more horrible things would be done to the residents of Almunson. At this moment, Alaric jumped off Zephyr's back with his eyebrows furrowed. The soldiers are exhausted. If we fight the heretic cult, they wouldn't have the energy for a prolonged battle. The Empress should have realized this too. Listen up, warriors of Veronica. The Empress's voice suddenly echoed like thunder. The tired warriors adjusted their postures, squeezing out their energies to stand firmly. I know you are tired, but our people have suffered for days at the hands of the heretic cult. As the Blade of Veronica, it is our duty to kill the enemies and ensure the safety of our people. We cannot allow them to suffer for another day. We must strike now. We will end this quickly so we can rest tonight. Her words invigorated the soldiers. Alaric frowned upon seeing this. She is impatient. She should have allowed her troops to rest for a few hours. Thinking about this, he walked towards the Empress, intending to confront her about the situation. Galliner and the others quietly followed him. The Crimson Phoenix Knight's order sensed them approaching. Kangjian Jianhua, the deputy commander, stepped forward to block their path. Stop right there. You are not permitted to come close to Her Majesty without her approval. Alaric stared at her with a deep frown. I need to speak with Her Majesty. This is important. Kangjian Jianhua didn't budge, but the Empress suddenly spoke. Let him come. Hearing this, the stubborn deputy commander reluctantly stepped aside, but she only permitted Alaric. Only His Highness can approach Her Majesty. The rest of you will have to stay here. Alaric signaled to his subordinates. He also sent Nivis a warning look. When he passed by Kangjian Jianhua, he heard her snorting with displeasure, but Alaric ignored her. He walked towards the Empress and stopped in front of her. Your Majesty, I apologize for this, but may I speak freely? The commander of the Crimson Phoenix Knight's order stood next to the Empress. Alaric took a glance at her before he looked away. There were more important matters at hand. He could admire her beauty next time. The Empress nodded indifferently. All right, you may speak freely. Alaric took a deep breath and spoke. Your Majesty, we should allow the troops to get some rest before charging towards Almunson. With their condition, they wouldn't last long. He shook his head with a grave look. Alaric had experienced numerous battles. A single mistake could lead to their defeat. He didn't want the Empress to sacrifice her troops. The Empress turned around and looked at the tall walls of Almunson as she replied. I understand your concern, but I cannot allow my people to suffer any further. But your soldiers are also your people, Your Majesty. Please reconsider. Alaric reminded her. The Empress hesitated. She was so engulfed in her rage that she had almost made a terrible decision. Fine, she mumbled. She turned her head to Bai Sealhua and commanded her. Deliver the message to the troops. They are to rest for 4 hours. Bai Sealhua acknowledged the command with a bow. Your servant obeys. Before she left, she took a curious look at Alaric. When she passed by him, her fragrant scent lingered in the air. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.